things that happened in our league this week that really have people talking. And even though the incidents themselves were separate, I think there's a connection to be made here. But before we go about making that connection, let me start with this. Car salespeople are some of the finest people you're ever going to meet. And I hope you buy your next car and the car after that from a car salesperson. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the incidents themselves, the biggest of which, of course, would be the 8-game suspension handed Barrie's Brandt Clarke. Clarke filling in Hamilton's Jan Mysak with an open ice body check down near the goal line. On the play, 5 in a game for Clarke. On review, the 8-game suspension is handed down. Here's the thing. Even when you watch this hit on replay, it looks like a pretty darn fine open ice body check. Mysak kind of one hand on the stick, reaching behind him to pick up a puck. And when his head comes back up, bam! There is Clarke ready to fill him in, and fill him in he does. The other thing, though, is there's another angle that you can see on review of this play, and it shows maybe a little more clearly shoulder to head when the contact is made. And this, my friend, is what happens when we officiate the game on instant replay and we review it frame by frame in slow motion. If you're looking for something, you're likely to find it. Here's another aspect of this hit, though. Like I said, Mysak kind of reaching behind him, looking at that puck, and when his head comes back up, he is met by Brandt Clarke. How many times through the history of this game have we heard the saying, "Keep your head up, kid"? And Mysak certainly didn't do that. Look, I don't wish ill on anybody. I wish Mysak a very quick recovery. But the reality is, his head was down. And when your head is down in this game, there's usually, at least in the past, a price to be paid for having your head down. Now, the other incident involves another suspension, this one for 2 games, to Flint Firebirds goaltender Luke Kavelin. Now, this wasn't a goalie-on-goalie fight, but the goalie still got into it because what happened was there was a skirmish and a couple of guys were paired off, 2 Firebirds, 2 Guelph Storm wrapped up with each other. And then there's Chase Coughlin of the Guelph Storm kind of on the outside of that 4-player scrum. He's doing these little jabs into a Firebirds player, and his glove is still on. I mean, what kind of shenanigans are those? So I guess the closest Firebirds teammate was goaltender Luke Kavelin, who came out and took matters into his own hands, and Coughlin was on the receiving end of that aggression, getting ragdolled to the ice by Kavelin. It's instigating a fight in the final 5 minutes of a game, and Kavelin is gone with a 2-game suspension. But the thing is, what was Kavelin supposed to do? What was anybody else supposed to do in that situation? And what is Chase Coughlin doing with these little jabs, glove on, to a player that's already tied up with another player? I think that if there was a greater penalty for actions like that, and I don't mean one in the penalty box, I mean there's a little bit of a policing presence out there on the ice, there would be a price to be paid for jabbing at a player who's already wrapped up with another player with your glove on. Maybe, just maybe, Luke Kavelin doesn't have to come to the rescue of his teammate, the goaltender. But it was kind of cool seeing Kavelin ragdoll Coughlin to the ice. So here's the thing. We don't want people hurt in this game, but we do want them to still play it with their heads up, right? And we don't want these namby-pamby little jabs with gloves on in the game, do we? We need to stop clutching our pearls and say, hey, fighting has a place in this game to prevent things like the little jabs with the gloves on against a player who's already engaged with another player. Maybe, just maybe, a little bit of back to the past would help hockey as we move into the future. I'm Farwell. It's Friday. We'll see you at the rink.